survivors, they're coming home. They float in darkness, they're not alone. Now here they come, now here they come, now they will be received.
Hello and welcome, everybody, to the easy guide to killing Vale Guardian, who was the first ever raid encounter to be released back in November 2015, and in my opinion is one of the most enjoyable and well-rounded fights in the game. Though not overly difficult, but not a walk in the park for newer players, Vale Guardian is a fantastic boss to begin your raiding experience. The overview. Before we fight the boss itself, we must defeat 3 mini-bosses on the approach to the arena. These enemies return later as key mechanics in the fight, and each give you a taste of upcoming mechanics you and your team will have to handle during the encounter. The Guardians. The Blue Guardian is the most troublesome of the 3. Firstly, he must be constantly stripped of his boons. This is often done by the Chrono Sword auto attack chain to allow for any damage to be done at all. He will spawn large green AoEs periodically, and to avoid party-wide damage a minimum of 4 players must be stood within these AoEs to mitigate the damage, thus saving the entire party. This can in fact be distorted by Chronomancers, but requires a high level of skill and timing. This mechanic will continue through the entirety of the boss fight. The Green Guardian has no defensive mechanic, so damage can be dealt immediately. Due to this, it is best to send one player to get his aggro and pull him to the group dealing with the Blue Guardian, whilst the Chrono works on stripping the Blue's defense. The Green Guardian spawns small blue AoEs around the feet of any nearby players. These will explode and teleport any and all players that are stood within them. They can be sidestepped, blocked, dodged, distorted and even jumped to allow for everyone to have an escape route at any time. This mechanic continues throughout the entirety of the boss fight. The Red Guardian is all but immune to any physical attack, and can only really be harmed by conditioned damage. So at minimum, it is best to bring along 2 Condi classes, ideally one being a Condi PS to allow for might generation during the later split phases. The Guardian will periodically spawn multiple red large orbs called Seekers. These deal moderate pulsing damage within their AoE field, and they move slowly towards players, so it is extremely recommended that druids take Glyph of Tides to allow for easy Seeker handling. This mechanic continues throughout the entirety of the boss fight. Vale Guardian. The Vale Guardian is the main boss of the encounter, and is a simple mix of all 3 Guardians into a single entity. He carries over the 3 main mechanics of the previous Guardians: the green AoEs, the blue teleport AoEs, and the red Seekers. These are the main threats during the fight, as Vale Guardian himself will only focus on the tank, and not deal any real considerable damage. At 66 and 33% of his health, he shall split back into the original 3 Guardians, and the party must split up and deal with them simultaneously. I'll explain this more in the split phase breakdown part of this explanation. The Arena. Now that we have covered the enemies that you will be facing in this encounter, we shall briefly go over the arena itself. The arena follows ArenaNet's golden rule for raid encounters. The fight area must be a circle. This rule holds true for most of the current raid encounters. The arena is split into 3 equal sections: red, blue and green. Each of these correspond to a coloured pillar that stand equidistant from each other around the arena. These shall become a major feature during the 2nd and 3rd phases, as they will light up in their given colour, dealing moderate damage over time. At 66 and 33% of the boss's total health, he shall retreat and split back into the 3 coloured Guardians that were defending the arena. Each will spawn at its corresponding pillar, the red only being affected by Condi, and a single person pulling the green Guardian to the blue to allow for the rest of the group to cleave them both simultaneously. The mechanics. I'm now going to go over the mechanics I touched on earlier, going into detail of how to mitigate and handle them. The greens. These are the large green circles that appear every 15 seconds at a random location on the same section of the arena that Vale Guardian is stood on. These will cause heavy party-wide damage if not attended to. To mitigate this damage, 4 players, preferably 1 druid with Glyph of Tides, and 3 range classes should be stood within these AoEs within 5 seconds of it appearing. They will take minor damage, but thus saving the entirety of the party. The druid can heal the damage done to the green party with ease. It should be noted that players in down state, or those whom are mid-dodge, do not count as one of the 4, and will need to be revived or replaced swiftly. The blues. These appear every 9 seconds around the feet of nearby players, and as I mentioned previously, these are extremely easy to counter, as they can be sidestepped, blocked, dodged, distorted, and even jumped. It is extremely important to dodge these, especially during the later phases, as getting ported could lead to a very swift demise. The Seekers. These spawn every 20 seconds and in multiples. These, as per mentioned before, cause moderate damage to nearby players, and become extremely lethal if they're allowed to converge together, and this is why it's extremely recommended that druids bring Glyph of Tides to push them away from the group, and then use their immobilize skills, such as the staff and avatar skills, to immobilize them for a few seconds. Chronos can also use their temporal curtain on the focus to pull them away from the group. Distortion options. Distortion allows for skillful chronomancers to invuln through certain mechanics or attack during some fights, and can really speed up encounters by allowing the entire party to ignore said attack or mechanic. For Vale Guardian, chronomancers can distort through the green's detonation, meaning that the 4 players that would have otherwise left the group can remain in the stack to continue dealing damage, though this can be rather tricky at the best of times, especially for the tank, and mistiming the distortion will mean the party taking the full damage of the green detonation, potentially leading to a wipe. This is the definition of high risk versus high reward. If you're a chrono who wants to learn how to distort greens, you should be aware that it is done via signets, with the domination trait Blurred Inscriptions, swapping your heal skill to make sure that you always have a signet handy. Pair this with timing your signet of inspiration and you will always have one at the ready, using the F3 only in dire situations. You should take into account that the cast times of signets are slightly different and will affect your timing of distortion. Also, take into account quickness as well as range, and this is where the difficulty really comes from, and only practice will help you improve here. As per mentioned before, blues can also be distorted, but it is not recommended to do so, as it will waste one of your signet casts and is not worth shattering your Avengers for. The Encounter. Phase 1. This phase lasts from 100 to 66% of Vale Guardian's total health, and it will begin with the Chrono Tank taking position by the red or blue pillars, positioning themselves close to the speed boost mushroom to give the party easy access to the buff while not having to disengage. The players pre-assigned to handling the greens should have their cameras set to a position where they can easily see the greens that spawn, near or far, and it is very beneficial to have these players on voice comms to warn the party of a green spawning, just in case someone doesn't notice. The rest of the party shall focus on avoiding blues, keeping clear of seekers, and damaging the boss as much as they can. A good benchmark to finish this phase is by 7 minutes on the timer. The split phase. Once the boss has reached 66%, he will retreat to the middle of the arena and split back into the 3 coloured variations: the red, the blue and the green guardians, each spawn at their corresponding pillar. At this point, players shall attune to whichever colour they are stood in, and extremely large AoEs shall cover the area, causing only minor damage to those stood within the AoEs with the wrong attunement. This can often be ignored as the damage is so minor a few heals can keep anyone alive within these fields. Your Condi players shall split from the group and go to the red pillar. As I mentioned before, he is only majorly affected by condition damage. One of the remaining players should go to the green guardian alone, as it is often faster to pull the green guardian over to the blue, allowing for the rest of the party to cleave down both guardians at the same time. As both druids should be at the blue guardian, the damaging AoE is of little consequence. The majority of the party should head to the blue pillar, minding that the blue pillar spawns localized green circles that must be dealt in the same manner of all the other greens during the fight. When the Green Guardian arrives, everyone should take care, as he will spawn the blue teleporting AoEs. All the Guardians must be CC'd once their health has been drained to finally put them down. Once all 3 have been killed, Phase 2 begins and their difficulty steps up, but only minorly. Phase 2. The only major difference between Phase 1 and Phase 2 is now that 1/3 of the arena is now lit up, meaning one of the 3 sections will now deal moderate damage to anyone who stood on it. There are 2 popular ways to deal with this. It should be noted that you should be mindful of the fact that he will enter his CC stance mere seconds after leaving the middle of the platform. This occurs no matter what strategy you use, as both start in a similar fashion. He will spray out damaging orbs whilst he's in his CC stance, so keep that in mind. The more efficient way is to bring Vale Guardian to the edge of the arena. The Chrono Tank takes position by the edge of the red to green section of the arena and moves only when the red section is about to light up, and then moves back after 2 greens have spawned on the green section, though often players that have been assigned to greens may have to tank the lit floor for a few seconds. The safer way is to simply rotate with the floor. This is how you'll have to handle the last phase, so it may be better to practice this technique first. For the Chrono Tank, it should be highly noted that the green circle will spawn in the same section of arena that Vale Guardian is stood in, so don't lag behind, as it will cause greens to spawn in the lit sections, making it extremely risky for players running the greens. Vale Guardian's CC stage will return every 30 seconds, and will leave him stationary until you break his CC bar. This can lead to greens spawning in unwanted places, such as lit areas of the arena. The rest of this stage is a simple matter of keeping all the mechanics in check while keeping up DPS. Split Phase 2. This is just a repeat of the split phase, but make sure to be on the edge of the red to green floor section as Veilguard returns. Phase 3. Phase 3 is very much where the real fight begins. You have been trained in each of his mechanics by each of his stages, and now he'll throw them all at you all at once, so buckle up. Tanking tips. Regardless on how you handled Phase 2, in this stage you will have to move, rotating clockwise, but now with a lot less room for error. Staying close to the centre of the arena will help you greatly. It will bring up the DPS and reduce the amount of movement you need to make to get yourself and, more importantly, Vale Guardian into the next section. As the tank, you'll want to move as soon as the green circle spawns on the section you're on. You may have to tank some damage from the floor, but this shouldn't be a problem. Even if you are put into down state, it is better to be revived than to have Vale Guardian spawn the green in the section that is now lit up, potentially ending your attempt. For the rest of the group, it's business as usual, avoiding the teleporting AoEs, keeping the damaging seekers away from your team, and getting those green circles. Reactions have to be on point. CC must be instant, as slacking on CC during this stage will cause Vale Guardian to stop following your tank and could lead to the green spawning in the previous section. Keeping all of this in mind and still managing to keep up steady damage might feel like a bit of a daunting task, but as they say, practice makes perfect. Follow these simple steps and sooner rather than later you'll be standing victorious on a now calm and serene arena, wondering how you found it so difficult to begin with.